Hello YouTube, this is Hunter Surge, and today we are here with our third of the Buddyfight Deck Guides. Today we are going to be diving into Kyoya Gaen, which is one of the top contenders in the most recent final stage Buddy Cup tournament in Japan. A Kyoya Gaen won the whole thing, and there was another one in the top 8. So this is one of the ones to be most aware of, and it also has like the most versatility in how you build it. So let us get into it. All right, so because there's a lot of versatility in how you can build Kyoya Gaen, we're going to be going over several different builds here. This first build is the build that won the Buddyfight final stage. It was a final stage, right? Let me just double check that detail. Yes, it was the final stage. This is the list that won. It's slightly modified. The only modification we've made here is that three of these Ancient World crits, and 3 of these Green Dragon shields are nationless triggers. Do bear in mind the rule set that we have seen posted on the BCS website says that we cannot use cards outside of the Buddyfight set. So we wouldn't be able to use those nationless triggers. That also applies to nationless, the other OTs, and also the Regalis pieces. So bear that in mind as always. You're going to want to adjust there. So let's talk about some baselines as always. So in Buddyfight, you are not going to get a going second draw, and you're not going to get access to energy. Instead, you are going to have a gauge zone, which gives you a gauge resource, gives you 2 gauge off the top of your deck immediately, and each turn, including the turn that you play out the gauge zone, you're going to get to charge and draw at the start of your turn, putting a card from your hand into your gauge and drawing a card. In addition to that, you will have one card, one rear guard that you're able to put in your ride line that will go into your buddy zone, and once you're on grade 3, once per fight, you'll be able to call it out from there and countercharge 1 as well. On top of that, so as we've discussed previously, that has the result of discard fodders are even more important in the Buddyfight decks. Because you're going to need to discard effectively 3 more times in your charge and draws in the early turns so that you have enough gauge at your disposal. At your disposal. In addition, Dragon Ein is a bit different. Dragon Ein will require an additional discard out of you when you put it into your order zone. Because it also gives you the ability to not lose until you take 7 damage, which is very powerful. The ride line itself is also really solid. The grade 1, when rode upon by the grade 2, will look top 5 for any dragon. And the grade 2 will just gauge 1, draw 1 from the top of your deck when you ride on top of it with the grade 3. The grade 3 itself gives every rear guard on your field that has Dragon in its race power plus 5k, including back rows. And you can, once per turn, Carablast 1, look top 5 for any Dragon, call it if it's a rare, add to hand if it's a normal order, and then its named ability is Dragon Throne. Your units with Ozzy Dahaka in their card names can be called regardless of their grades, and they can attack from the back row center column. So this gives us our 4th attack. And then our 5th attack comes from Yearner of Extinction, Ozzy Dahaka. It cannot be ridden. It has a call cost of pay 2 gauge and retire a rear. When it's retired during the opponent's turn, or your damage attack revealed a card during your opponent's turn. If your Vanguard circle does not have an item, you get to search your deck or drop for an Occultic Guanef and arm it to your Vanguard. And then it has the double attack ability. So from the back row center rear guard, at the end of its battle, if you have a standing grade 3 or greater Vanguard, you get to Carablast 1 and stand it. And then from back row center rear, when it's restood by this effect, it gets power plus 10k until end of turn. And if your opponent's on grade 3 or greater, it gets an additional critical plus 1. And Occultic Guanef is armed to a grade 3 or greater unit with Kyoya in its name. It cannot be played and cannot be armed other than by the ability of a card with Ozzy Dahaka in its card name. And during your turn, it gives your Vanguard plus 10k power, plus 1 crit, gives your Aussie to Haka units plus 5k power, and when the unit this card is armed to is attacked once per turn, you can give an additional 15k. So it's a free 15k shield, and you're going to be getting like an easy 5 attacks that from turn 4 onwards is going to have 2 of them be at 2 crit. Very good offensive pressure. Very solid offensive pressure. So in the main format, Kyoya struggles very significantly because if your opponent has any form of alternative removal, be that like bouncing, binding, locking, anything like that, and they use it to remove Aussie to Haka, you don't get a Cult of Gonef. And it is quite bad for you. Dragon Empire's Ace unit can also remove it without triggering the effect to give you a Cult of Gonef. And that stuff is all like quite bad for you. It basically means your deck isn't able to function correctly, and having to try again to get there isn't great. You would have to like try to put out multiple Aussie to Hakas, and that's expensive to do. So it puts you in a really bad spot. However, there are literally no decks that do that in the Buddyfight only format, so it doesn't have to worry about that in Buddyfight only, and it's just able to flex the power that it has access to. Also has some very powerful other cards it has access to. The big one is Dragon Knight Cagliostro, which is just on place. If your order zone has Dragon Ein and you have not placed another Cagliostro this turn, you draw a card. Just an AK, like in Buddyfight, Cagliostro was a size 1 with the lowest possible stats a size 1 could have. This is just a standardly statted grade 1, so it's incredible. It makes your early game really good. And as you can see in this build, they are running a pretty heavy drum engine. That is largely in part because Drum Bunker SD, in addition so this thing, we talked about in the Gao video, when your Drum Rearguard in its different card name is placed, you can Soul Blast 1 and call this to the same column from your drop. This card has no Vanguard name requirement, so we can just splash this in no problem here, and it's just an incredible card. It gives us really good low commitment early game, in addition to allowing us to have really easy retire fodder for the call cost of Aussie to Haka. Unfortunately, Soul Guard in this game does not work quite the way it did in original, so you can't Soul Guard for that cost, but Drum Bunker SD is a really easy, cheap card for you to bring back and sacrifice for your Yearner. So that's really fantastic to have access to. So for that purpose, this is running the 3 Drum Bunker Dragons and the 4 Thunder Knights drums. This is effectively just running 7 copies of Thunder Knight's drum. If you get Drum Bunker, you will use its effect to search for Thunder Knight's drum, and then Thunder Knight's drum has an on attack at plus 5k if your opponent's at grade 3 or greater. But more importantly, when you intercept with it, it is going to have shield plus 5k and then additional shield plus 5k for each card in its Buddy Soul. So if you call that with Drum Bunker, it's going to have 2 cards in Buddy Soul. So it's going to have 10k shield for 20k shield total. If your opponent's on grade 3 or greater already, it will also trigger Drum Bunker's own additional plus 5k shield from the Buddy Soul for 25k shield intercept. Just very good value, and it's going to be swinging for, when your opponent's on grade 3, it's going to be swinging for 20k solo, because it will also have the 10k buff from Kyoya. So it makes very good numbers. It's very good in the early game. Just a lot going for this card. This is also on Pizarro. Pizarro is able to rest itself in front row to draw a card, but you cannot move it to other rear guard until end of turn. However, at the start of your battle phase, if your Vanguard is armed within a Cult of Gonef, you can resand it. It also has a mode for 100 demons. We don't really care about that. And also in this list is Kokaitis Greed, which gauges 2 from the top of your deck on place, and can pay 3 gauge to retire into your opponent's rears, and on attack, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, it gets power plus 5k. So this is another thing that's going to be swinging for 20 solo. There are, as I mentioned, a lot of other things that you can do with this deck, but this is a really good baseline. Like this has the really strong early game engine drum stuff. This has the Cagliostro stuff. This doesn't fall into the trap of going really in on the ancient world orders. Yeah, lots of really good stuff here. So this is a really good baseline if you want to play this deck. And it has a ladder as its Regalis piece. But as I said, based on the rules that we have right now for BCS is Buddy Fight events, we aren't going to be able to use the Regalis pieces. We'll find out on November 21st if that's actually true or not. We will find out at that first event if that's actually true or not. Maybe they just wrote it wrong on the BCS website, but at current, that's the information we are working with. So I'm also going to talk about the Kyoya list the other Kyoya list that made top 8. So this one doesn't run any extra copies of Yearner. That's something that you can very easily get away with because of the fact that that there's really no retire in the format. So it is very unlikely that your opponent is going to be able to clear your Yearner, like, and leave you without your double attack. It's very unlikely that's going to happen. This has 2 copies of each of the Ancient World Orders. You really don't have the space to go super hard in on it, and it has a drum package as well. In addition to the Thunder Knights drums and the drum bunkers, it also has 3 copies of Blue Sky Knight's drum, which has a Carablast 1 draw card effect. So this is more stuff that's good for your early game. Doesn't have any power gain, but it's still pretty solid. Forgot to touch on this, but the over trigger in use here is Found Out. Because you in Yearner you have a crit gaining rear guard. So Vound Out targeting Yearner is extremely powerful. Very, very, very good. This is less on Pissarro. That is something I kind of agree on, and not running the Cocytus. Cocytus decks you out way faster. Like, that takes 2 cards out of your deck. And Pissarro, I'm actually not a huge fan of. Because, like, it's effectively just a filter, and it's not going to be able to be an attacker but on a turn that you get that draw until turn 4, so it doesn't feel super great personally, but this isn't the deck I'm going to be taking into my Buddy Fight event anyway, so, like, that's a decision I'll leave up to you. This is also on only 1 Occulta, which is very risky, because if you damage the Occulta, your deck just doesn't work anymore. And it has 1 copy of Zahhak as well, which is able to look top 7 on place for an Aquilta or an Aussie Dahaka. Which I'm not sure why they were on this in this list. I assume they were on this more for the plus 5k power and plus 5k shield. Because they only have 1 Aquilta in deck and they don't have any Aussies to hit. But yeah. The crit of choice, the secondary crit of choice, in addition to Ultimate Buddy. Ultimate Buddy can come up in this deck because you can, like, use your normal order for turn, play Ultimate Buddy under Aussie Dahaka, so that Aussie Dahaka has Soul Guard to insulate it against removal. So that's very nice. You always want for Ultimate Buddy for that reason. And then the other crit that sees play in the Kyoya decks is Ryusho. Because in a pinch, this can let you retire 1 of your rears to get 1 more gauge, if you really, really need that extra gauge. Then we'll talk about a few more options you have available to you. So Gargantua Punisher is a dragon. So that means both the grade 1 Kyoya and the grade 3 Kyoya's effects are all able to add it to your hand. If you lean in on the Blue Sky Knight's drum side of things, you can actually have enough gauge to use Gargantua Punisher. And if your Quilted Gwalnef is up, that is going to be a 2 crit swing coming from the Kyoya on restand. So Gargantua Punisher can be quite strong in Kyoya. You definitely need to be going in on the Blue Sky Knights here. The other part here is in addition to the drum engine that I quite like in Kyoya, is you run a couple 5th Omni Dragonlord drums, because this is a plus 10k attacker, so it hits really, really good numbers. Like, it's going to be 25 solo because of the Kyoya buff, and then it can have a 13k, it'll have a 13k booster behind it if you have anything behind it. And the big reason I like running 5th Omni Dragonlord drum is because the condition on Drago Wisdom is have a Vanguard with Gao in its card name, or a rear guard with 5th Omni in its card name. So Drago Wisdom gives you a ton of extra extra discards for your early game, which really helps smooth out those early stages of the game. Oh, also something I forgot to mention regarding Thunder Knight's drum in the other builds, or even this build. If you have the drum that you actually want to call, you can just discard drum bunkers, base drum bunkers that you draw into, and shove it into Soul with the call cost of these cards, and get the extra power and extra shield from its effect. If you're not on, if you're on any orders that aren't your Regalis piece, when it comes to thinking about Regalis piece, obviously, of course, this doesn't apply to BCS, to our knowledge, but outside of that context, Twin Cast is the one that makes the most sense because this deck has no shortage of top X digging. It really doesn't need Fire Regalis. And if your normal order is being taken up by other stuff, then Twin Cast is just very obviously the choice that you want. And then lastly, this is a version with the 5th Omni stuff that doesn't run Gargantuan Punisher. If you decide that's too high of a gauge cost for you to play around with, you can run this version, which also has the 2 5th Omni drums, and has the Dragon Wisdoms, and fits back in the extra 3 Yearners, so that you can always have access to the double attack if this gets removed. And yeah, this deck has like a ridiculously cheap early game, which I'm going to demonstrate to you. But this deck feels very, very strong in an environment like the Buddyfight only tournaments where there's just no deck that is able to punish it. It's also, because it only has 1 restand, it's also less vulnerable to Zanya stuff than other decks. And fortunately, Zanya does not have access to a grade 4. Which means that Zanya is not able to Hades Fall the Ozzy Dahaka on play. Now, it does have the same weakness we talked about with Gao, in that there's a lot of cards in Zanya that shut off your ability to intercept, so the Thunder Knight's drums provide less value. But your output is still really, really strong. So, yeah. Let us get into a shadowboxing game and demonstrate some stuff. So first up, the going second turn 1. We have like a decent number of grade 1s, and both these are super low commitment. Because if the drum bunker SD gets retired, you can just bring it back. And the Cagliostro is just going to draw us a card on place. In fact, if you have a Cagliostro in your opening hand, even if you go first, it is usually correct to call it out to rear, so that even if you don't have one at that exact moment, if you draw into a Cagliostro, another Cagliostro for your turn 2, you're able to call it and resolve its effect. So that's very important to bear in mind, first up. So for our turn 2 plays, there's a lot of options. This is specifically with the first place list for the moment. So Cagliostro, especially if we're going first, going second, Cagliostro again super valuable because this is going to hit their Vanguard on 8 while just replacing itself immediately. And then if you have either Thunder Knights or base drum, you just get to call them, bring back the drum bunker SD, and then this would go into a Thunder Knights drum from the deck, and is representing this is 20k soul, I believe. Yeah, this is 20k shield here, with like a full tri-lane setup. If you don't want to go for the full tri-lane setup, Pizarro to tap to draw is also an option here. But this is also part of why I don't really personally like Pizarro that much, because it doesn't help that much with the early game stuff, because it has to go in the front row to get its draw effect, and it can't be moved. You would have to call over it, which doesn't feel super great. And Cocytus is also an option. If our opponent is attempting to swing back on us, we can call out the Cocytus Greed, get 2 gauge, and then for the effective cost of 1 gauge, pop one of their rears and set back their early push. A lot of the Buddyfight decks have some pretty solid early push. So having that tech is like, it's really easy to see why a player would settle on running some Cocytus Greed, because that sort of early game retire is just not something any of the decks here really have. And it does it without spending any Counterblast. So that Cocytus Greed tech is pretty nice. And I do like that side of it quite a lot. And like this board is like literally one card of commitment. It's like 2 cards of commitment and gets us 25k shield. Like, and this has Soul Guard, so like, so this is 20k shield normally. However, if we're going second and our opponent is about to ride up to grade 3 on their next turn, that will immediately turn on the in soul effect of Drum, to give the thing it's in the soul of an additional plus 5k power and plus 5k shield, which allows it to be even higher shield. So like, almost certainly you're going to be able to a single card guard and attack with that Thunder Knight's Drum. So it's just incredibly valuable, especially if called off Drum Bunker. But even if just called normally, it'll still be a 15k shield that your opponent can potentially put a Retire into. But even if they do, you're just going to Soul Guard and it's still going to be 10k shield. Also, good to be aware of the fact that Drum Bunker SD has the alternative mode of throwing it into the soul of the drum that was just called. So you can actually add even more shield power to the Thunder Knight's Drum if you really want to. You don't have a ton of soul to play around with in Kyoya, so I think most of the time you really want to be using the Drum Bunker SD for the straight plus. But that's a mode to be aware of. And unlike Gao, we do actually have 2 really good back row rears, so it's super easy for this deck to actually have its full setup, instead of like Gao, where you're often going to end up in scenarios where you just don't have any you just don't have enough back row rears to fill up your formation. Also of note, there's no Counterblast cost anywhere in here. The only version that really has any Counterblast costs on this turn 2 is the versions that run Blue Sky Knight's Drum. So if you're running Blue Sky Knight's Drum, you might need 1 Counterblast, but that's really it. Like, the Counterblast cost of this early commit is just nothing. Just absolutely no cost here at all. So it's super, super good. Then, of course, we have our turn 3 setup. So something really cool you can do for your turn 3 setup when you're going into your Yearner is, okay, let's get this off the field and have access to a drum. Let's say we saw a drum off the top 5. We right up to Kyoya, we Counterblast 1, and this Drum Bunker is also not on the field for whatever reason. We Counterblast 1, and we look top 5, we get the Drum Bunker Dragon. 1, that being an act, super nice, because it means that we're able to spend our Counterblast, our first Counterblast, since we don't spend any on turn 2, look top 5, get something to our hand, get something onto rear, whatever. And then when we buddy call the Yearner of Extinction Azidahaka, we will have a Counterblast to unflip. Very, very nice. So from there, so this gets called out. And the top card is in its Buddy Soul. So off of that, we get to revive the Drum Bunker SD, right? And then from there, we call out the Yearner, retiring Drum Bunker SD, and then we use Drum Bunker's effect to go into Thunder Knight's Drum, which then is able to proc the effect of Drum Bunker SD again and revive itself again. Very, very nice interaction. You don't have much soul to play with in this deck, as I said. The only soul gain you can really get in the deck is by running Blue Sky Knight's Drum. And that's not live until your opponent's on grade 3. But But that setup to bring out the Yearner is very, very nice. Makes it a lot, not very high commitment at all. And like, you can just be fine. Like if you played out the Drum Bunker SD turn 2, then it's just a simple matter of, okay, we retired the one that's already on the field. Then we go into a drum, and we bring back out the Drum Bunker SD, and we're fine. So that's pretty great stuff. And then when we're going into the actual turn, so we have, we're going to have plus 10k here. This is only going to have 5k on it at this point. This is going to have 5k on it as well. And this is going to have 5k on it as well. And this is also going to have 5k on it. So it goes... Shit. Battle. We want battle. Okay. So it goes like, we want to do it like, oh, I need to apply my power again. My bad. So this is going to swing for 18. Then we're going to counterblast 1, restand, and it's going to swing for, this time it'll have plus 10k power, so it's going to swing for 28 on the second swing, but we're not going to do that yet. We are going to swing with Kyoya first, because it is only at 13 on this turn. It hits like kind of a wet noodle, but it is going to have the pressure of your Vanguard swing, you getting your drive checks. So we do our drive checks, get nothing, and then we have a 28 here. We have a 28 here, and then we have a 33 here. And then if, say, this was instead, our opponent is on grade 3, then we instead get an additional power plus 5,000 here, and this second swing is going to have an additional crit on it. Very, very good stuff there. Then if we are, then if it's on Persona Ride turn, so Persona Ride, and we will have taken another damage, which will have enabled us to activate the Occulta. Oop, that is not what I meant to do. Yeah, so we're going to have the Occulta here, which is going, so we're going to have an additional plus 10 from Persona. Then Occulta is also giving plus 5 here. And this is going to have additional plus 10 as well as a crit. So we are going to get to go 33 with this on its first swing. Is going to restand. And then this is, and it's going to get another power plus 10 and crit plus 1. This is going to swing for 33 with 2 crit as well as your 2 drive checks. This is going to swing for 43 2 crit. This is going to swing for 43, and this is going to swing for 43. Very, very good numbers. Like, the Persona Ride turn is very solid numbers. Lots of crit pressure is the big thing. Yeah, the crit pressure is crazy, crazy high. And you have this extra defensive stuff from the Quilted Guanef. Thunder Knight's Drum gives you a really good defensive engine that you actually have the front row space in your optimal offensive formation to have the space for the Thunder Knight's Drum. If you're on the Gargantua Punisher tech, as we were talking before, so this is going to restand again and swing for 33 2 crit again with 2 drive checks again, which is just a lot of pressure. Additional pressure that you're putting on there is a 6 attack turn with 3 2 crit swings. Your opponent's probably going to have gone to 5 at that point by the time you're doing the Gargantua Punisher. But yeah, you definitely need, also you definitely need Blue Sky Knight's Drum. for that. Kokai's Greed can also help with achieving Gargantuan Punishers. That's another place to consider the Kokai's Greed tech, if you want to go in on the Gargantuan Punisher stuff. And honestly, with the Gargantuan Punisher build, you can go as low as 1 Gargantuan Punisher, because like by time you want to be using their Gargantuan Punisher, you will have had a ton of draws as well as 3 different top 5 checks for dragons to try and find it. Of course, if we're on the version that that runs the 5th Omnidrum over here, this number is actually going to be even higher. This is going to have an additional plus 5k here for 48 total. So just very, very solid numbers. Pushes good numbers, 5 attacks, lots of crit pressure, lots of good defensive value, really good early game. Like, the deck has a lot of things going for it, and it's not a surprise at all that this was the deck to take down the final stage in Japan. Very strong deck. Very strong deck in a format where it does not have to worry about its game plan being shut down by alternate removal taking out Ozzy Dahaka. Good stuff. Good stuff. That's going to be it for today. Tomorrow we are going to be talking about another of those top contenders. Tomorrow we are going to talk about Zanya. So look forward to that. And I'll see you guys later. This is Harry Surge signing off.